Welcome back here, everyone. So today is National Girls and Women in Sports Day, established 37 years ago by the Women's Sports Foundation. The goal of this day, to bring attention to the promise of girls and women in sports. Scripps Clinic sports medicine specialist Dr. Ligament is here with us to talk more about the importance of health for female athletes. So last summer, Doctor, thanks for coming on, marked the 50th anniversary of Title IX, which has had huge benefits. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and why it's been so important to female athletes?
Sure, thanks for having me. Title IX was passed in the 70s, and it guarantees equal access for girls and women in institutions that receive federal funding. So in athletics, that means equal sport opportunities for girls and women. It's had a huge impact over the past 50 years. Now we see girls participating in organized sports at 12 times the rate that we did in the 70s, and over 3 million girls a year will participate in organized sport either through their school or through an outside organization.
Oh yeah, my daughter's getting ready to take on her second year of softball here, so she's been inspired by the female athletes here before her. Talk a little bit about female athletes and their risk for injuries, because there is a health component to this, and then we can get into some of the warnings and everything. But what are some of the risks?
Sure, we see actually higher rates of ACL tear in our female athletes, and we see higher rates of overuse injuries in general across the board. It varies a little bit by sport, but in general, our female athletes do seem to be at higher risk for overuse injuries.
The ACL tears, what's behind that? Is it a specific sport, or is it just sports in general and they just come in with more tears?
Tends to be more cutting and jumping sports, but we do see it overall. It tends to be related to some body mechanics. So for example, we see girls tend to land from jumping with their legs straight rather than bent. And in boys, we tend to see them land with their knees bent rather than straight. The ACL primarily stabilizes the knee, and so those dynamics can increase the force through the knee joint when you're landing with your knee in extension.
Okay, and then overuse, what are some of those sports, and what do we need to be on the lookout for overuse in women's sports?
So in general, running, jumping sports, so things like basketball, we see higher rates of knee overuse injuries, and things like softball, like your daughter plays, we tend to see a little bit more shoulder and elbow overuse injuries.
Okay, what can people do? What can our athletes out there, some young girls maybe watching this, some moms out there that still like to participate in sports, what can they do to try to prevent, no offense, seeing you, right, and heading to the hospital and having to deal with doctors and everything and long-term injuries? What can they do?
So for ACL specifically, their FIFA, which is the World Soccer Organization, they put out a great ACL prevention program. It's a series of stretches, strengthening exercises, and then agility work that's sport specific that's been shown to decrease rates of ACL tear kind of across the board in adult and pediatric athletes. Secondly, overall, working on core stability can stabilize everyone, kind of upper extremity and lower extremity, and we tend to think about core as like your glamour muscles and your six-pack, but you really want to think about it including your pelvis and your hip stabilizers. And then lastly, neuromuscular control, which really just means how your muscles work together to perform a certain movement. Practicing that outside of game situations can help train the dynamics when you're in a game situation to decrease risk of injury.
As a coach myself too, I always feel like it's worth pointing out stretching and stretching appropriately and doing enough stretching before you're out there, because you can't go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. I mean, you've really got to warm up the body. Does that help too?
That's absolutely true, and a little bit more dynamic stretching. So we think about static stretching where you're kind of bending over and touching your toes, but kind of those leg swings and wall kicks and high knees, those types of stretching activities as part of a warm-up is part of actually that FIFA protocol and tends to be a little bit better for prevention. Okay,
so mimicking maybe the sport you're about to go out there and play. Awesome, Doctor, thanks so much for your time. Was there a site that people can learn more information or anything that you want to pass along from Scripps?
Scripps.org/ortho is a great place to start. Like you said, I hope you don't need us, but if you do, that's a good place to find us.
Scripps always there for us. All right, thanks, Doctor. Really appreciate it.